Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. It's me, Addy, again, and I hope you guys are doing amazing as always. So, a couple nights ago, I finished Final Fantasy II for the very first time. Over a year ago now, we began what I like to call a Final Fantasy marathon, where my goal is to play through all the mainline single-player Final Fantasy games that I've yet to conquer. And so naturally, we started with Final Fantasy I, through its most recent version, the Pixel Remastered Edition, of course. For context, before embarking on this marathon, my experience with the mainline Final Fantasy series was limited to 7, 9, and 16, with Final Fantasy VII holding the esteemed position of my all-time favorite video game. And so based on the love that I have for Square Enix's magical series here, I felt it was high time to immerse myself in even more of its rich experiences. Final Fantasy I was a great time, particularly with the Pixel Remastered version. It felt really fulfilling to delve right into the origins of the series and see it through from start to finish. So I was really excited to move right on into the next game. And although I did start the Pixel Remaster of Final Fantasy II immediately after its predecessor, I didn't manage to finish it last year due to the release of several highly anticipated games that took precedence. But now, nearly a year later, I dedicated a solid couple of hours this past weekend to finally completing it. So today, I'm excited to share my thoughts with you on this game. Now, since I don't have the time to produce my usual high-quality game reviews, I've decided on a compromise. I'll be doing what I'm calling a mini review. In this format today, you'll be hearing my detailed thoughts over snippets of gameplay from my experience with Final Fantasy II. This approach is reminiscent of what I did for the first game last year, although that was a lightly edited rip from my livestream commentary, whereas this is pre-recorded and more carefully organized. Alright, without further ado, here we go. So, Final Fantasy II, like its predecessor and many games of its Nintendo era, unfolds in a medieval high fantasy setting. It shares similarities with the first game, a group of heroes united against a world-threatening menace, a journey across diverse landscapes including land, sea, and sky, and classic turn-based JRPG gameplay. However, what sets it apart is its innovative approach to these familiar elements. For instance, instead of each character having a singular level that increases with experience points, Final Fantasy II introduces a unique system where each weapon type has its own skill level. And these skill levels progress based on how frequently each character uses those specific weapons. Additionally, Final Fantasy II allows you to assign any weapon or spell to any character, offering a high level of customization. This flexibility means you can mold each character into any archetype you desire, no matter how intricate it may seem. For example, you could do what I did, which was to create a party where two characters specialize in dual wielding for high damage output, another acts as a paladin focusing on physical damage and healing spells, and a third character combines traits of a thief and black mage. The leveling system here and the freedom to create diverse and unique party compositions are what truly stood out to me in Final Fantasy II and provided me with some of the most enjoyable moments I have ever had with a turn-based video game. The approach to character writing in Final Fantasy II was also quite innovative for its time within the series. It was the first time in the series where party members had predetermined names and backstories, and even though in this game they might not have been the most fleshed out characters in the world, this was still a neat thing to witness. And I was pleasantly surprised by this because I had previously thought that the concept of pre-named characters was introduced much later in the series. In fact, there were several aspects of this game that caught me off guard like this, most notably the inclusion of chocobos and a character named Cid. And it was a joy realizing that Final Fantasy II here served as the origin of these iconic recurring elements in the franchise. Final Fantasy II also took bold strides to explore darker themes such as rebellion and sacrifice, whilst maintaining the core theme of good versus evil from the first game. Its premise revolves around a group of rebels led by the main protagonist Firion, who are fighting back against a tyrannical empire. And while the storytelling in Final Fantasy II may not meet today's standards of spectacle, I found it quite impressive overall, and was once again pleasantly surprised by a few elements that I didn't expect from such an early game in the series. These included impactful plot twists involving character identities and well-written side characters who temporarily join your party. These guest characters who make sacrificial acts for the rebellion added a surprising bit of depth and emotion to the story. That said, despite the game's age and the era's focus on gameplay mechanics, these characters managed to leave a lasting impression, showcasing a commendable early effort in character development within the franchise. I also enjoy the NPC interactions in the story, especially thanks to the game's unique keyword system. While some found it burdensome and unnecessary, I oddly liked it because it added an extra layer of interactivity. Having this word bank to learn and share new concepts with characters throughout the journey was a cool feature, influencing story progression in some really interesting ways. Overall, I loved most of Final Fantasy II's unique features, but my main gripes were with its dungeon design and encounter rate. Now, I did enjoy the twisty, multi-floor dungeons and the surprise mini-bosses from deceptive chests, much like in the first game. However, some chest rewards felt random and underwhelming for late game, like basic knives and clothes instead of higher level gear. I also disliked the numerous empty rooms behind doors on each floor. It seemed like they were just there to pad out playtime and encourage exploration, but that just feels outdated and doesn't hold up well today. Moreover, the encounter rate throughout the game was higher than I prefer, similarly prioritizing gameplay padding. While I really did like this game's combat system, my enthusiasm for it began to sadly wane due to the overwhelming number of random enemy encounters. It felt like I couldn't move 2 steps without running into another group of mobs. And despite their solid variation and beautiful designs, they eventually became tiresome to battle. Fortunately, the Pixel Remastered version allowed me to adjust encounter rates, providing some relief and breathing room. However, I didn't like that I had to resort to this feature. But at the end of the day, Final Fantasy II was an enjoyable experience. To the best of my knowledge, many aspects of the original Nintendo version, particularly the leveling system, felt incomplete and opaque. However, these classic issues have been largely addressed in the Pixel Remaster. Like Final Fantasy I, I believe this remaster offers the best way to experience the game, thanks to Square Enix's evident dedication and the inclusion of quality of life improvements such as a guiding map, stunning sprite work, and a remastered soundtrack that captivated me, especially the cavern theme, which might just be my favorite among all the cavern levels in the series. It was that good and catchy. So, here's my final verdict for Final Fantasy II. It's a game that I recommend, with reservations. It is a significant improvement over the first game in almost every aspect, though its unique identity may or may not align with your preferences for JRPG gameplay progression. Also, despite the improvements in the Pixel Remaster, there are still issues like the aforementioned dungeon design and enemy encounter rates that could be better. Nonetheless, I appreciate its fresh and subversive approach to turn-based combat and its role as the genesis of many iconic elements in Square's beloved franchise. With these positive impressions, I'm really looking forward to delving into Final Fantasy III, a game I'm largely unfamiliar with, and discovering what it has to offer. This marathon has been awesome so far. So, if you guys want to join me on this journey, then be sure to check out my Twitch channel where I stream these games live. That's Irritable Indian, linked in the description below. And if you want to watch all the high quality VODs of this marathon or any of my other streams, then you can find them on my second channel, that's Irritable Archives, also linked below. I really appreciate you folks for checking out this slightly different review today, and I look forward to making more for every Final Fantasy game that we experience in this marathon. Until then folks, take care of yourselves, and as always, keep on keeping on.